Welcome to QuickSpeak, the English podcast that helps you learn and master the language. Today we're going on a deep dive into emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's something that we hear more and more about these days, especially in the professional world.
It really is. And it seems like emotional intelligence, or EI, is just as important as IQ these days.
Right.
So what does it actually mean to be emotionally intelligent?
Okay. Well, let's think about a time you had to give someone difficult feedback.
Yeah.
Maybe a colleague wasn't pulling their weight on a project, or maybe a friend needed some tough advice. How did you approach that conversation?
Right.
Were you able to deliver the message clearly, but still respect their feelings?
That's such a good example. I can see how being able to understand those emotions,
Right.
both your own and the other person's, would be really crucial in a situation like that.
Yeah, exactly. Emotional intelligence is all about being aware of those emotional currents, right? And navigating them skillfully,
Yeah.
understanding how emotions influence our thoughts, our behaviors, our interactions.
So it's not just about being in touch with your feelings. It's
Yeah.
about being able to use that awareness to communicate well,
Yeah,
build relationships, make good decisions.
exactly. And it goes beyond just recognizing those emotions. It's also about understanding the nuances of emotions.
Okay.
You know, those subtle cues that tell us what someone might be feeling,
Right.
even if they're not expressing it directly.
So it's like reading between the lines in a conversation.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Picking up on those nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
Body language, tone of voice,
Yeah.
all of that.
It's about being attuned to those signals.
Yes,
Okay. So I understand there are different ways of thinking about emotional intelligence.
there are.
Can you tell me a bit more about those different models?
Sure. One model focuses on emotional intelligence as a set of abilities.
Yeah.
Things like accurately perceiving emotions, using emotions to facilitate thought and problem solving, understanding the complexities of emotions, and managing our own emotions and the emotions of others.
So it's like a skill.
That's right.
Okay.
Just like learning a new language,
Yeah.
we can get better at understanding and managing emotions with practice and effort.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
What about the other model?
The other model views emotional intelligence more as a personality trait, something that is relatively stable over time. It looks at characteristics like self-control, empathy, sociability, and optimism as indicators of emotional intelligence.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding our own tendencies.
Yes, exactly.
Our way.
Recognizing our strengths and weaknesses,
Yep.
using that self-awareness to navigate our emotional landscape.
I can see how both of these models are valuable.
Yeah.
You know, we can definitely develop our emotional intelligence skills, but we also need to be mindful of our own personality traits.
Yep.
It's finding that balance.
Yeah, that balance between nurture and nature.
Right, recognizing that we can always grow and evolve, but also embracing our own unique emotional wiring.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Now, I'm curious, how does emotional intelligence play out in real-life situations?
Sure. Let's say you're working on a team project, and one of your team members is consistently missing deadlines. An emotionally intelligent approach would involve, first, trying to understand why those deadlines are being missed.
Okay, so instead of jumping to conclusions or getting angry, you take the time to connect with that person.
Yes.
See things from their perspective.
You might discover that they're struggling with a personal issue,
Right.
or maybe they're feeling overwhelmed with their workload.
And once you understand the reason, then you can work together to find a solution
Exactly.
that addresses everybody's needs.
It's about finding that win-win solution that takes everyone's emotions into account.
That's a great example of how emotional intelligence can foster collaboration, create a more supportive work environment.
It really can.
It goes beyond the workplace, of course.
Of course.
Emotional intelligence is just as valuable in our personal relationships.
Absolutely.
I can see how being able to empathize with your partner,
Yes.
understand their perspective, communicate your own feelings effectively,
Yeah.
would be so important for a healthy relationship.
It allows us to navigate the ups and downs of relationships with greater understanding,
Yeah,
with compassion, with resilience.
I like that.
It helps us build stronger connections, resolve conflicts constructively, create a more harmonious and supportive environment for ourselves and those we love.
So it's not just about being nice or avoiding conflict.
Right.
It's about having those skills
Yeah.
to navigate those tricky emotional waters.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about using our emotional intelligence to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life, both personally and professionally.
Now, I know our listeners are all learning English.
Yep.
Can you speak to how emotional intelligence might be helpful for them as they navigate the challenges of language acquisition?
Oh, of course. Learning a new language can be both exciting and challenging, right?
Absolutely.
There are moments of triumph, when you finally grasp a new concept or you have a successful conversation.
Yes.
But there are also times of frustration when you feel stuck or you make mistakes.
It's a roller coaster of emotions.
It really is. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Okay.
Being aware of those emotional fluctuations and being able to manage them effectively
Right.
can make a big difference in your language learning journey.
So, for example, if you're feeling discouraged because you're not progressing as quickly as you'd like,
Yeah.
you can use your emotional intelligence to reframe that frustration
Exactly.
as an opportunity for growth.
You can remind yourself that making mistakes is part of the process.
Right.
Every challenge you overcome brings you closer to your goal.
And that ability to persevere,
Yeah.
to bounce back from setbacks,
Yeah.
stay motivated,
Mm-hmm.
is a key ingredient for success in language learning,
It really is.
just like any other area of life.
Just like anything else.
And emotional intelligence can also help you connect with native speakers
Yes.
on a deeper level.
Right.
How so?
Well, empathy allows you to understand and appreciate different cultural perspectives.
Okay.
It helps you see the world through the eyes of someone who speaks a different language, comes
Right.
from a different background.
So it's not just about the words and the grammar.
It's not just about the mechanics, it's about understanding the culture, the people who speak that language.
It enhances your communication,
Exactly.
makes you a more sensitive and respectful communicator,
Absolutely.
and it enriches your overall learning experience.
Yes, it does.
That's a great point. It seems like emotional intelligence is a valuable asset, not just for language learning,
Right.
but for life in general.
I couldn't agree more. It's a skill set that can truly transform the way we interact with the world around us.
Yes.
From our personal relationships to our professional endeavors to our ability to connect with people from all walks of life.
I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into emotional intelligence,
We really have.
but there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
We'll continue our conversation in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds great. Yeah, lots to unpack.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm eager to dive even deeper into this topic in this next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
I'd like to focus on some specific strategies
Right.
that we can use to develop our emotional intelligence.
That sounds great. I think a lot of people are really curious about that practical side.
Yeah.
What can they actually do to become more emotionally intelligent?
Exactly. So let's start with self-awareness, which we've already touched on.
Right.
It's that foundation of emotional intelligence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is the ability to understand our own emotions, thoughts, and values. It's about recognizing how those inner experiences influence our behaviors and our interactions.
But how do we actually cultivate self-awareness? It can be a bit elusive.
It can be,
Ah.
but there are some very practical things we can do.
Right.
One technique I often recommend is journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How can writing in a journal help us become more self-aware?
Well, think about it this way. When we write down our thoughts and feelings, we're creating a space to observe them more objectively.
Right.
Taking them out of our heads,
Mm-hmm.
putting them onto paper.
Right.
This allows us to step back and see them from a different perspective.
So instead of being caught up in the whirlwind of our emotions,
Right.
we can start to recognize patterns,
Yes.
identify triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and gain a deeper understanding of our own inner landscape.
Exactly. And the key is to be consistent with your journaling practice.
Okay.
Even just a few minutes each day can make a big difference over time.
That's a really accessible strategy.
It is.
Something anyone can do,
Yeah.
regardless of their background or resources.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
You can simply write down whatever comes to mind. Your feelings, your thoughts, your observations, your dreams. It's
Mhm.
about creating that space for self-reflection.
Now, besides journaling, are there other strategies we can use to develop self-awareness?
There are many. Another powerful technique is mindfulness.
Mindfulness. That's a term we hear a lot these days.
We do.
What does it actually mean to be mindful?
Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
It's about noticing our thoughts, our feelings, and our sensations as they arise
Yeah.
without getting caught up in them
Right.
or trying to change them.
So instead of dwelling on the past
Yeah,
or worrying about the future,
right.
we're bringing our attention to the here and now.
Precisely. And when we do that, we start to notice things that we might have missed before.
Oh, interesting.
We become more aware of our breath, our body, our surroundings. We start to see the world with fresh eyes.
I like that. And how does that increased awareness translate into greater emotional intelligence?
Well, when we're more mindful,
Yeah.
we're less likely to react impulsively to our emotions.
Okay.
We create a space between the stimulus and the response, which gives us the opportunity to choose how we want to respond.
So instead of just reacting automatically, we have a moment to pause, reflect, and make a more conscious choice.
Exactly. And that ability to pause, to create that space for reflection, is a key aspect of emotional intelligence.
I can see how mindfulness could be a really valuable tool for managing stress and navigating challenging situations.
It can. It helps us stay grounded in the present moment,
Right.
which can be incredibly calming and empowering, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed.
Now, we've talked about journaling and mindfulness as strategies for developing self-awareness. Are there other approaches that we can consider?
There are. Another effective strategy is to seek feedback from others.
Feedback from others.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit daunting. Why would we want to subject ourselves to that?
Well, think about it this way. We often have blind spots when it comes to our own behaviors and emotions.
Yeah, I think that's true for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
We may not be aware of how our actions are being perceived by others.
So, getting feedback from people we trust
Yeah.
could give us more objective perspective.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves, seeing ourselves through the eyes of others.
But it's important to choose those feedback providers wisely.
Absolutely. Seek feedback from people who are honest, supportive, and have your best interests at heart.
And it's also important to be open to that feedback,
Yes.
even if it's not always what we want to hear.
That's right. It can be challenging to receive criticism,
Yeah.
but it's an opportunity for growth.
How do we actually go about asking for feedback?
Be specific in your request.
Okay.
Let the person know what areas you'd like feedback on. Frame your request in a positive way.
Okay.
For example, you could say something like, I'm really working on being a better listener. I'd appreciate it if you could give me some feedback on how I'm doing in that area.
That's a good tip. And once we receive that feedback,
Yes.
it's important to listen attentively,
Yes.
ask clarifying questions,
Right.
thank the person for their honesty.
Precisely. Feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to learn and grow.
Now, we focus quite a bit on self-awareness,
We have.
but emotional intelligence also involves understanding and managing the emotions of others.
Right. That's where empathy comes in.
Empathy.
Yes.
Such a powerful word.
Yeah.
But what does it really mean to be empathetic?
Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others.
Okay.
It's about stepping into their shoes, seeing the world from their perspective, feeling what they're feeling.
It's like putting on a pair of emotional glasses.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not just about understanding their thoughts and feelings, it's about feeling them too.
So it's not just a cognitive process, it's an emotional one.
Exactly. It's about connecting with others on a heart-to-heart level.
And how does empathy contribute to emotional intelligence?
Well, when we're able to empathize with others, we're better able to communicate effectively, build strong relationships,
Yeah.
navigate conflict constructively.
Because we're not just focused on our own needs
That's right.
and perspectives,
We're taking the time to understand and consider the needs and perspectives of others.
which creates a foundation for trust,
He does.
respect, and mutual understanding.
Precisely.
So how do we develop empathy? Is it something we're born with? Or can we cultivate it?
It's a bit of both, actually. Some people may be naturally more empathetic than others, but it's definitely a skill that can be developed with practice.
That's encouraging to hear. So what are some specific strategies that we can use to become more empathetic?
One of the most effective strategies is active listening.
Active listening, what does that involve?
Active listening is about truly engaging with the other person, both verbally and non-verbally. It's about paying attention not just to their words,
Right.
but also to their tone of voice, their body language, their facial expressions.
So being fully present in the conversation,
Exactly.
putting aside distractions, giving the other person our undivided attention.
And when we do that, we're sending a message that we care about what they have to say. Their thoughts and feelings are important to us.
And that feeling of being heard and understood is so important.
It really is. It creates a sense of safety, trust, and connection.
So active listening is a key component of empathy. Are there other strategies we can use to cultivate this important skill?
There are. Another powerful strategy is to practice perspective taking.
Perspective taking, what does that involve?
Perspective taking is about consciously trying to see the world from another person's point of view.
Okay.
It's about putting ourselves in their shoes, imagining how they might be thinking and feeling.
So like a mental exercise in empathy.
Exactly. It's about challenging our own assumptions and biases and trying to understand the world through someone else's eyes.
And how can we actually practice perspective taking?
One way to practice is to simply ask yourself questions like, what might this person be thinking right now?
Right.
What might they be feeling?
Okay.
What might their motivations be?
So it's about engaging our curiosity.
It is.
Trying to understand their inner world.
Precisely. And when we do that, we start to develop a deeper appreciation for their experiences and perspective.
And that can lead to greater compassion and understanding
It can.
in our interactions.
Perspective taking is a powerful tool for building empathy and creating more harmonious relationships.
Now, we've talked about active listening and perspective taking as strategies for developing empathy. Are there other approaches that we can consider?
There are. Another effective strategy is to expose ourselves to diverse perspectives.
Diverse perspectives, what do you mean by that?
Well, if we only interact with people who are similar to us,
Right.
who share our values and beliefs, we're less likely to develop empathy for those who are different from us.
So it's about stepping outside of our comfort zone,
It is.
engaging with people from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
different cultures.
Different perspective.
The more we interact with people who are different from us,
Yes.
the more we challenge our own assumptions and biases.
The more we develop our capacity for empathy.
I can see how that would be really valuable for developing our emotional intelligence.
It is.
It's about expanding our horizons,
Yeah.
opening our hearts to new possibilities.
It's about being curious about the world around us, seeking out opportunities to learn and grow from those who are different from us.
Precisely, curiosity and openness.
Yes.
Essential qualities for developing emotional intelligence. Now, I want to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about the role of emotional intelligence in leadership.
Great topic. Leadership in the 21st century is all about connecting with people, inspiring them, guiding them toward a shared vision.
And emotional intelligence seems to be a key ingredient for that kind of leadership.
It is. Emotionally intelligent leaders are self-aware, empathetic, skilled at managing relationships.
So they're not just focused on the bottom line.
Right.
They're attuned to the emotional needs of their team.
They understand that people perform best when they feel valued, respected, and supported.
And how do emotionally intelligent leaders create that kind of environment?
Well, they start by creating a culture of open communication.
Okay.
They encourage feedback, both positive and negative. They're willing to listen to different perspectives,
Right.
even when those perspectives differ from their own.
So they're not just dictating from on high.
No.
They're engaging in a dialogue.
Exactly. And they're also skilled at recognizing and celebrating the strengths of their team members.
Right.
You know, they know that everyone has something unique to offer.
Yeah.
They create opportunities for each person to shine.
It's a very empowering approach to leadership,
It is.
fostering a sense of belonging and shared purpose.
A much more positive and productive work environment.
Now, we've talked about the positive impact of emotional intelligence in leadership, but are there any potential downsides to being emotionally intelligent?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I think the answer is that, like any strength,
Okay.
emotional intelligence can be misused or overused.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, someone who's very empathetic
Okay.
might find it difficult to set boundaries or to make tough decisions
Right.
that could potentially hurt others.
So they might end up sacrificing their own needs
Exactly.
to avoid conflict
Yeah.
or to please others.
Which can lead to burnout, resentment,
Mm.
a sense of being taken advantage of.
So it's important to find that balance between being empathetic and assertive,
Yes,
being compassionate and setting healthy boundaries.
absolutely. And it's also important to be aware of the potential for emotional manipulation.
Emotional manipulation.
Yeah,
That sounds a bit sinister.
it can be.
What does that involve?
Emotional manipulation is when someone uses their understanding of emotions to control or influence others for their own benefit.
Oh, so they might use guilt trips or flattery
Exactly.
or other tactics to get what they want.
And it can be very difficult to recognize emotional manipulation, especially if the person is skilled at it.
So what can we do to protect ourselves from emotional manipulation?
The first step is awareness.
Okay.
We need to be aware of the tactics that emotional manipulators use so we can recognize them when they're being used on us.
Right. And then we can set boundaries.
Yes.
Assert ourselves.
We can say no. We can walk away from the situation.
Right.
Seek support from others.
So it's about knowing our worth and not allowing ourselves to be taken advantage of.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. We need to use it wisely and ethically.
Now, I want to touch on a topic that's been on my mind lately. The relationship between emotional intelligence and technology.
Ah, yes. It's a fascinating and complex topic.
It really is. You know, on the one hand, technology has connected us in ways that were unimaginable just a few decades ago.
It's true.
We can communicate with people all over the world instantly, share our experiences,
Yes.
learn from each other.
The access to information and connection that we have today is unprecedented.
But, on the other hand, I worry that all this technology might be eroding our emotional intelligence.
I understand that concern.
Yeah.
It's a valid point.
We spend so much time staring at screens, interacting with avatars, emojis, that we might be losing our ability to connect with real people in the real world.
There is a growing body of research that suggests excessive screen time can have a negative impact on our social and emotional development,
Right.
particularly in children and adolescents.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
Yeah. What's the solution?
Right. How do we harness the power of technology without sacrificing our emotional intelligence? I think it comes down to balance and awareness.
Okay.
We need to be mindful of how much time we're spending online. Make sure we're also prioritizing face-to-face interactions.
So, putting down our phones,
Yes.
engaging with the people around us.
And when we are online,
Right.
we can make a conscious effort to use technology in ways that enhance our emotional intelligence,
Okay.
rather than detract from it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, we can use social media to connect with people who share our interests,
Okay.
to learn about different cultures, to engage in meaningful conversations.
So, using technology to expand our horizons and connect with people on a deeper level?
Precisely. And we can also use technology to practice our emotional intelligence skills.
Oh, that's a good point. I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of that.
There are many apps and websites now that offer mindfulness exercises, emotional intelligence assessments, communication tools.
So we can leverage technology to support our emotional growth.
Exactly. It's about using technology intentionally and mindfully, rather than letting it control us.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
And I think that resonates with our listeners
Yeah,
who are actively engaged in learning and personal growth.
I agree. We're all on this journey together, navigating the complexities of the modern world, striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
And emotional intelligence is a compass
It is.
that can guide us along the way.
A tool that can help us build stronger relationships, communicate more effectively, and live more fulfilling lives.
So let's keep exploring this fascinating topic,
I agree.
learning from each other,
Yeah,
supporting each other on this journey of personal and collective growth.
I couldn't agree more. Now, I think it's time to move on to the final part of this deep dive.
Okay.
There's one more area I'd like to touch on before we wrap up.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into emotional intelligence.
It's been a really great discussion so far,
Yeah, we've covered so much.
covering so many different facets of this really important topic.
For this last part, I'd love to kind of bring it all together. We've talked about all these different aspects of EI, the strategies, but how does it all connect to living a more fulfilling life?
You know, that's a great question to end on. I think it's important to remember that emotional intelligence isn't just about succeeding at work or having, smooth conversations.
Right.
It's about how we show up in the world, how we navigate challenges, and how we connect with ourselves and others.
So it's more about our overall well-being than just achieving specific goals.
Exactly. Think about a time you felt truly content
Okay.
and at ease. Maybe you were spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or just enjoying a quiet moment. Chances are you were in tune with your emotions.
Right.
You were understanding your needs.
Yeah.
And responding to the situation with a sense of balance.
I see how that inner peace is really connected to emotional intelligence.
It is. When we're emotionally intelligent, we're less reactive to stress. We're better equipped to handle difficult situations without getting overwhelmed.
Right.
This allows us to stay focused on what matters most, whether it's our personal goals, our relationships, or simply being present in the moment.
So it's about having that resilience
Yes.
to bounce back and the clarity to make choices that align with our values.
Exactly. And it's not about being happy all the time.
Right, of course not.
Because life inevitably throws us curveballs.
It does.
But emotional intelligence helps us navigate those difficult emotions, right? Process them constructively, and emerge from those challenges with a sense of growth.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having that inner compass to guide us through all of it, helping us stay true to ourselves.
It is. And remember, developing emotional intelligence is an ongoing journey.
It is.
There's always room for growth, for deeper understanding, for more skillful responses to life's challenges.
So it's not about reaching some destination.
It's not a finish line.
Yeah. It's about continuously evolving, expanding our capacity for self-awareness, empathy, and emotional regulation.
Exactly. And the more we invest in this journey, the more we reap those rewards of a fulfilling, meaningful, and connected life.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
It's been a really great conversation.
It has.
And for our listeners who are learning English, I hope this deep dive has not only expanded your vocabulary, but also given you some valuable tools.
Absolutely.
For navigating life's challenges with greater awareness and skill.
It's been a pleasure connecting with you all.
And don't forget to subscribe to QuickSpeak for more insightful conversations and language learning tips. Be sure to check out the episode description for additional learning materials, including vocabulary lists and exercises related to today's deep dive on emotional intelligence.
Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep growing.
We'll see you in our next deep dive.